Thank you. Hello, I'm Troy Torgerson. I'm representing the Primary Immune Deficiency Treatment Consortium today, and I wanted to start, next slide, please. I wanted to start by maybe explaining where we came from and what the baseline state was before the start of this consortium. So before this consortium was funded and initiated, we had clinical immunologists that were seeing patients, and oftentimes many of those patients were being referred for bone marrow transplants and other aggressive therapies. The bone marrow transplanters were transplanting these patients often without a lot of input from the immunologists, and the patients would go off and get transplanted and be sent back, and then the patient advocacy groups in many cases had good connections with the immunologists who were seeing the patients up front, but did not have great connections with the bone marrow transplanters, and outcomes were not as good as they could have been. So this consortium, beginning in 2009, really nucleated a collaborative consortium that includes immunologists, bone marrow transplanters, and patient advocacy groups. That was the start of the consortium, and now we've got individuals who have joined us that have expertise in rheumatology, gastroenterology, nephrology, because those organs are also involved, of course, in the process of these aggressive therapies. So when the consortium first started, it was focused on three immune deficiencies that classically were known to have very poor outcomes in childhood. Those were severe combined immune deficiency, Wiskott-Aldrich syndrome, and chronic granulomatous disease, and really focused on trying to understand the diseases better, the natural history of those diseases, to understand where the barriers were to having better outcomes, how to treat those patients, and then how to support them then after transplant. And since that time, the consortium has expanded to include a group of disorders that really has emerged over the last 10 to 15 years or so, which we're now calling primary immune regulatory disorders. These are genetic diseases that are predisposed to developing severe autoimmunity, and many of the patients who have inborn errors of these genes go on to develop severe disease, and we really have no consensus around how to diagnose and treat these patients. In addition, many of the genes that are identified in this group of patients are also being found now as somatic mutations or acquired mutations in individuals with adult onset autoimmune disorders. So that's an exciting area where this work has contributed. So together, there are 46 centers of excellence that have pooled patient data longitudinally to follow patients, to understand the natural history, and to then develop evidence-based treatment strategies. There are new gene discovery, and the sequence-based approaches have been very helpful in helping us to stratify outcomes for patients who previously would have been maybe classified as, say, severe combined immune deficiency only, but now they've got severe combined immune deficiency caused by this gene defect, and that may change what their outcome is to a particular bone marrow transplant regimen, for instance. And so this has allowed us now, having access to, there are now about 520 genes that have been identified as causes of inborn errors of immune diseases, and now having access to that data and helping to identify some of those genes and also then to develop treatment or gene-specific therapies that have benefited some of those patients. And then now bone marrow transplant and gene therapy, of course, have been initiated for many of these diseases, and that has been successful both in severe combined immune deficiency, Wiskott-Aldrich syndrome, chronic granulomatous disease, and now in other immune defects. And those trials are ongoing. The consortium has published well over 100 papers that have really established both natural history and treatment outcomes for these disorders. It has led to the development of prospective NIH-funded clinical trial, for instance, in the setting of severe combined immune deficiency, looking at now the natural history of these diseases being treated in a variety of ways, now taking the best of those and putting those then into a prospective clinical trial. We've also collaborated with a number of biopharmas that are supporting gene therapy approaches to these diseases to help with acquiring historical data to assist with their now going to the FDA to get approval for these therapies. Bringing together the community has, I would say, been one of the major accomplishments of this consortium. And we now have an annual meeting that has attendance of about 200 people and is growing every year. And again, it runs the spectrum from immunologists, bone marrow transplanters, patient advocacy groups, as well as now other subspecialists that treat these patients. The other thing is the initiation of population-based newborn screening for severe combined immune deficiency in the United States and beyond. And the difference that this has made is we used to quote patients that the incidence of of severe combined immune deficiency was about 1 in 100,000 births. Now, by doing newborn screening for SCID, we now know that it's about 1 in 45,000 births. So at least half of the patients were going undiagnosed and were probably dying before they ever came to medical attention. So as a result of newborn screening, of course, the patients are treated and transplanted earlier. Clinical outcomes have been better and are now well over 95% for the majority of these patients. And combined with that, the newborn screening has erased the disparity in outcomes based on access to medical care otherwise, or other problems that had arisen to make it so some patients just were never identified. It's really now become the nucleus of a number of clinical trials. This resource that we've built with now well over 2,000 patients has now been funded by an NIH R24 grant from NIAID, and is being used as a resource, again, working with pharma partners and with our PAG organizations to really push forward therapies for these diseases. So it's made an enormous impact for the field. It's made an enormous impact for patients, well beyond the 2,000 that have been enrolled in the trials. I think it's had worldwide impacts, and that all really goes to a big thanks to the NIH for funding this consortium. So I'll end there. Thank you. This is from our last our last scientific meeting, and unfortunately, you can't see some of the folks at the front, but you see some of the folks who helped initiate the consortium there to the right, Jennifer Puck and others. So thank you.